Welcome to Coffee and Calm with Amanda, where we have real talk for homeschool moms who crave coffee, peace, and permission to break the rules. I'm your host, Amanda Schenkenberger, second generation homeschooler, mom to four boys, and author of the book Overwhelmed. And this is your space to breathe deep, laugh a little, and find real encouragement for your homeschool journey. Today, I'm joined by a homeschool mom I've had the privilege of working with for over a year. I've watched her grow in her confidence as she's discovered her own homeschooling style. And now she is sharing that journey with other moms through connection and journaling and giving ourselves permission to homeschool differently. So thank you so much for being on here, Brittany.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. I really appreciate it. I enjoy spending time with you.
I love it too. It's so refreshing. So tell everybody listening a little bit about your homeschool mom journey. Like, who are you?
So I'm Brittany, and I'm homeschool mom to two boys. I've been homeschooling for probably about 5 years now. My boys are 8 and 10, and we started in like right after preschool. Actually, it was funny. I'd never intended on homeschooling, but then when COVID hit, well, my oldest was in preschool and more people started talking about it. And I always wanted to spend more time with my boys. So when I found out that there were resources out there, that there were people to help walk you through it, that there were co-ops and cohorts and all sorts of things available, curriculums, it made sense that I could actually stay home with them and that I could do this thing.
I love it. I love it. So, as a homeschool mom, especially as mom who was not prepared to homeschool because like I decided at like 14 or 15 I was going to homeschool. So being a second generation, I had some pictures in my mind of what that journey was going to look like. But for you, what was a time that you felt overwhelmed as a homeschool mom, and what did you do to walk through that?
Yeah, so it's certainly not having planned on homeschooling. There are many times in my journey where it has been a tad overwhelming because you really this isn't how I was raised. Like I went to Catholic school and everything was very structured, textbooks, workbooks. It's very different. So there was a time in my homeschool journey where I was working with my boys and I was leaning heavy into those textbooks and the way that I was taught to do math and because that's how I understood things. And it was probably about a year and a half or so ago. And of course, it was like March, when everybody says almost everybody hits that homeschool burnout. Like it's like
Yeah.
you hit that wall and everybody's like, don't change curriculum at that point. Don't like you're fine. Just make it through the year. And I'm like, no, but it's not working. Like we are fighting. We were screaming, yelling at each other. He's 10, he just turned 10, but he was, I guess 8 at the time. And yeah, it was a battle to do the things. And I had to really reflect on like, how do my kids learn? And yeah, this might be how I learned, but what keeps me interested and what keeps them interested and what keeps them wanting to learn 'cause the biggest thing as a homeschool mom is you don't want to kill that love of learning. Like that's why that's one of the reasons a lot of us do this is we want to keep our kids loving learning. So I felt overwhelmed. I felt like, oh, I'm not supposed to change curriculum at this point in the year, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make the change. And I leaned into a different math curriculum. I leaned into a different language arts curriculum that I learned that we are a very literature based family. So we leaned into the read aloud revival and the brave writer lifestyle and just kind of going with the flow and reading. We read to learn history. Sometimes we read to learn math. Sometimes, so it's just kind of like reflecting on what really worked for us and not being afraid to change it up really helped.
Yeah, and that's the same kind of advice I would give to a mom. Like, it's March. Don't try to change things, right? Everybody wants to, like February and March, we want to change all the things because we're like, oh my gosh, the light at the end of the tunnel is so far away. I cannot go 3 or 4 more months like this. So that would be the same sort of thing I would suggest. going against the grain, not just of homeschooler advice, but as somebody coming from a different background with very structured school, with being, raised in Catholic school, what what kind of like pull did you feel? Was there any like doubt you had in your mind, or like what was that like for you to structured then like going against that structured grain and then going against what all the homeschoolers were saying? What how was that for you?
Oh my gosh, it was a serious challenge because I am a rule follower. Like I am somebody who is always kind of oh gosh, I remember in high school walking through the halls like with a friend, like I don't know where we were going and through the halls, but we didn't have a hall pass and it was like we don't have a hall pass. Like it's like I am a rule follower. So like I like a script to follow. So learning to lean into that intuition was really challenging for me, but it's been the key, like, it's been the key to learning who my kids are, because
Mm.
they're 2 I have 2 boys, so you would think and they're only a year apart, so you would think this might not be so challenging, but they are so vastly different some days, and it's like so yeah, just going against, the grain in terms of, like I said, that script, like, I like to follow a script. I like to know all the steps, but sometimes it's less about the steps and it's more about reflecting on like one thing I always say is it's not just even about how your kids like to learn, it's about how you like to learn. Because we are learning alongside our kids. Let's be honest. History was not my favorite subject in school. Now it is. Now, like, because I'm learning it in a way that is interesting to me.
Right.
So that makes it fun for them because I'm like, "Oh, this is fun, this is interesting." But it's like just because that's how I was raised in Catholic school doesn't mean that's actually how I liked to learn, and, like, as I'm learning a lot about myself at 41 years old, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I get to rediscover who I am." So
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love you said a word. You said your intuition. And that's something I think culturally we have been just separated from as women and mothers, and we're like, oh, I'm not the expert, let me trust the experts, when in truth you are the expert on your children. There is no one who has been more intimate with your children than you have, because they were inside your body. You shared the same blood with them, you guys shared oxygen. I mean, there's not a connection like that anywhere else for them in the entire world. So, yes, you are the expert in your children, and learning to lean into that intuition. What do you said that was one of the keys. What would you tell a mom who feels like maybe he's a rule follower like you and is feeling a call to do it differently, but it's against the rules, but she knows her into like she's got this thing inside her. What would you say to her? How did you lean into that intuition?
honestly, I would tell her you have to find support in people that will help you lean into that intuition. It is extremely hard just to learn to listen to yourself without somebody else, but at least for me, giving you that encouragement that yes, you need to listen to yourself. So I'll be honest, like some of it was doing the Heart Smart homeschool program with you. Like some of it was going through that and being in group scenarios where I could talk to other homeschool moms and go, well, I don't know, this is happening, and like sharing our wins and sharing our struggles. And it's key. I think finding a sense of community is key. And you you do find a sense of community by going to co-ops and classes, homeschool classes and stuff, but I don't think quite as much as I found, like I said, doing the Heart Smart program, because that was just us moms meeting where I'm not distracted by, oh, my kids are running around at the playground, and like it's key to connect with other moms, like even if that's not like your kids community, it's key to find that mom community for yourself to help lean into that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so with leaning in to your guys's literature-based learning style, for a mom who's like, "Okay, that sounds interesting." What tell us a little bit more about what that looks like for you guys at home.
So to kind of try to find like your style. So like I said, I did mention that we are literature based style. to try to find your style, you really have to take those moments to reflect. And like, again, a lot of this came through your Heart Smart program, but frequently you would give us some guided journaling questions. And so a lot of that was like, what went well this week? What didn't go so well this week? What was a struggle? Why might that have been a struggle? And then thinking about how you can alleviate those struggles in the next week or what might work better, or if something did work well, how can I bring more of that? you know? So when I decided to switch, like say to the literature based, it was like kind of it that was through a journaling question that you think believe that you presented us in Heart Smart, like how do we learn best? And it was like, yeah, we learn through literature because I found that we really like reading like historical nonfic or historical fiction and things of that nature. And so that was like, yeah, that's how we really like to learn a lot of our subjects. We like just reading. My kids love we read at bedtime every night that they don't unless they have a sports practice that has us out too late. We read every night at bedtime. Like and it's just that's how we enjoy learning. And so through that, I had to, and forgive me, I'm a talker outer because that's so Amanda knows this about me, but for your audience, I'm a talker outer. So I may sound like I'm talking in circles a little bit, but I swear I'm getting to my point. But
It's like an infinity circle, right? We're
yeah,
moving. We're gonna get there. There's some looping.
sleeping. So yeah, so it's like really sitting down and putting pen to paper and doing some of that like guided journaling, like having some questions presented to me to really reflect on how my kids like learning, what those moments are that we feel most connected, what those look like in homeschooling. That's really how I kind of got to what our current homeschool style is and what works for us.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to encourage, like, I would be like if I was a new homeschool mom, I would be the mom who's like, I got to follow this approach, this structured approach, because I'm super structured. I'm so type A. And I would be like, I have to follow this certain structure. But I want to, anybody who's listening, who's still at the beginning part of their journey, I want to encourage you to kind of dabble in a few different things and then reflect like Brittany reflected, because you might not know how your kids learn best because you haven't tried it yet. And I think part of the process of becoming a homeschooler, we go through this deschooling kind of process where we're shifting our mindset from, okay, I know learning to be done in a classroom. There's a teacher at the front, and I sit and then I take notes or whatever. That's the way we think of education and learning, and shifting to what homeschooling looks like. And that is the whole process of deschooling. And so, whatever length your deschooling process is, I want to encourage you to try these different kinds of learning opportunities, whether that is like a nature co-op, whether that's reading, whether that's like something that's very physical. You try so as many different learning opportunities as you can, and then reflect like Brittany's reflecting, because when we do that, we get to what works so much faster. And so I love that's how you have gone through and found what works for you and your boys. And I'm right there with you. Like I hated history as a kid. And now like reading it with my kids, it's ridiculous. Like I'm like crying. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this really happened and this person was so heroic." And often they'll be like, "Okay, mom." And I was like, you don't feel it." Maybe we'll get there one day. But I feel the same way. And I think if we're not excited to learn whatever it is alongside of our kids, then we're the leader, we're setting the tone. And if we're not excited about it, I think just like you said, we should lean into how we also enjoy learning, because our excitement leads them. So I love everything you shared. So you through this whole process, you have kind of discovered a really good way for planning, but it's kind of the opposite of what you would think planning is. Would you tell us a little bit about reverse planning?
Absolutely. So when of course, when you think planning and you think like I got to write down all the things I got to get done this week, right? Like you've picked out your literature curriculum, you've picked out your, math curriculum and you're like you put everything on a planner. Then it doesn't always feel so good. Like when you didn't get the things done, when you weren't able to check all the things off and you're like, "Oh, am I falling behind in this?" First of all, as homeschoolers, one of the first things like that we learn over that first year or so is that there is no behind. Our kids are all learning at their own pace. And obviously your listeners are all in different states, but in the state of Maryland, we have to cover certain subjects like, with consistency. But consistency is up to us as moms. Like that is up to us. Yeah, we need to cover our core subjects, but we cover them in a way that sometimes it's a curriculum, sometimes it's reading historical fiction. Sometimes it might be listening to podcasts, or kids doing KiwiCo or Crunchlabs boxes for science. Like we learn different ways, and so reverse planning. It started for me, and actually getting a planner and just writing down what we did each day instead of my to dos. I would write down, okay, we did this today, and we did this today, and we listened to this podcast today, and yeah, it was a science podcast, and yet we listened to this and then over time, so I go through seasons of my life where that still feels good to me to write it down each week. Like I'm currently in a season where I'm kind of planning my weeks out and writing an erasable pen and moving things around. And I've gone through seasons of my life where it's like, yeah, I don't need to write down what we did every day. Like, and so I've had pages, blank notebooks, whatever, where I have the season. So it's like, oh, it's fall 2025. And I write down science, social studies, language arts, math. And I write down just the curriculum we do. Or like as we listen to a podcast, I might jot it down in that science section or that social studies section. So reverse planning is really just taking the process of as you do things, writing them down, and then you can look back over the season and you can see if, oh, maybe there were some holes like last fall. It's like, ah, yeah, I didn't do a whole lot with music. And so you can see if there was like some holes, and maybe you can, in the next couple months, you might lean into that a little bit more. But you can also see that, oh, wow, we did a lot. Like, we had a lot of experiences. Like, in addition to the subjects in my reverse planner, I have a page for books we read, I have a page for field trips and experiences we had. And you can be like, wow, my kids are having this amazing childhood where we're experiencing these things with friends. We're reading this amazing literature that nobody's telling us we have to read. Like, and just having those experiences and kind of capturing them in a way that, like I said, looking back on that season feels good.
Yeah. And even just like what you were sharing, like, oh, we didn't do a lot of music. And in in our house, my husband does a lot of reading to our kids for fun, kind of like you guys. My husband like sings and plays the guitar a lot and talks about music a lot. And I'm not very musical, and so it's not on the front of my mind. But then I think about all the things he does with his dad, and he was just on a trip with his dad, and they watched a video about music theory, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could write that down because that totally happened, you know? And those are just I think one of the cool things about reverse planning is it helps us in that whole, like, deschooling process of, "Oh my gosh, we really are learning all of the time." And, like, yesterday, my oldest, he'd gotten this, fiction book, in this series from Ted Decker, and he's on the book Red, and he couldn't find it for a few days. Yeah, and I was like, "Okay, well, when was the last time you remember having it?" And we were at the bouldering gym. And I said, "Okay, well, I'll put their number in my phone, and you call them, and you ask." And he was like, "Okay." And even that was a learning experience. He's learning how to talk to people on the phone, and I'm like, "Yeah, you could say, 'Thank you, goodbye.'" And I was like, "Okay, thanks, bye." Like, he's learning how to have conversations with strangers, and, not that he couldn't do that on in person very well, but over the phone, it's just different, and so there's so many things that we're doing that are learning experiences, and I really think even if you don't reverse plan forever, right? It's just a season. Like you said, it comes in seasons, which heads up, y'all, homeschooling, like being a homeschool mom, everything is a season, just so you know.
Yes.
Everything is a season. But even if you just reverse plan for a season, I think it's so eye-opening just to see, oh my goodness, we really are learning so much all the time. It really helps you shift your mindset on it. And so I know you, Brittany, you've developed a tool to help moms with reverse planning. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. So yeah, and to reflect on what you said, like that's the thing is like learning does not happen at the kitchen table, right? Or at a desk. Like so it is those life learning experiences that I think that reverse planning really helps us acknowledge and reflect on. And so I developed this product that it gives you pages to reflect on that. And like you said, it might just be for a season. Not everybody is going to want to use reverse planning for forever, but if you use it just for that season, like it really does help open your eyes up to what you're doing. So the product I developed, it gives you those pages to jot down like those it gives you both weekly for those seasons that you want to lead into the week and you're like, "Oh, I really want to write down what we do every week because I need to see what our schedule looks like and how we're consistently doing things." Or those seasons where you're like, I can't even think about what I'm doing every week. I just need to know that we're covering things in this season. Like, look, I'm looking back on a time when my grandmother had passed away and we were working on planning the funeral. And for 2 months, my kids probably didn't sit down and do any structured work at the table, but they were still going to their nature classes. They were still listening to podcasts, watching, videos on whatever we were learning about, like just to reinforce things. Like, it just wasn't quite as structured. And so that's what those seasonal pages, like, just spring of 2023, this is we did do stuff. It just wasn't on a weekly schedule.
Mhm.
So that's where the seasonal pages can come into play. But my reverse planner also includes some guided journaling pages. And I think that those are really key to reflect on like what my child did well today. What was a struggle for us today? Like, and how can I lean into those positives, like the things that, really interested them more, and how can I alleviate some of those struggles? So there's some guided journaling pages in there and that you can the nice thing is my product is a printable. And so you can print like some of the guided journaling pages might speak to you and some might not. And some of them you might be like, well, I want to use like these two occasionally, but this is the one I want to use over and over again. So you can print them and use them how you need them, like on the days you need them. So there's one page that I go back to repeatedly. So I print like 10 of those. And then like, 2 or 3 of the other pages so that I can use them when I see fit. And then there's also on top of those daily ones, there are some to reflect on the season. So it's like at the end of like the month or the end of that season, you can look at the ones that kind of sum it up and you can go, okay, let me go back and look at some of my daily guided journaling pages and see where there's some themes throughout and see how I want to make some tweaks or how I want to lean into something more. So I really think
Yeah.
it just gives you that opportunity to reflect back on what's working and what isn't and how you want to really like cultivate that homeschool life that you imagine.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And it sometimes we don't even know what that homeschool life like looks like. And
Yeah.
so this process of journaling and reflecting and like the reverse planning and thinking, oh, these are all the things we did do, that could be the process that helps you discover, oh, this is what I want our homeschooling to look like and to feel like. And this is what works well for this kid. And this is what works well for this kid. And becoming, I think those guided journaling pages is one of the things that can really help us become a student of our children. And when we understand how our kids are wired, what makes them tick, what they're interested in, then that's when homeschooling can really flourish. And like we can see our children begin to thrive in what they love, and they begin to discover themselves, see how they are smart, and really dive into their passions and developing their whole person. And so that I think anybody listening who is intrigued by the idea of reverse planning, I'll have Brittany's link in the show notes. I want you to go and grab her guided journal, guided reverse planning journal, and print those pages because it's something that we could very easily skip over and be like, oh, I don't need that. That's not going to help me. But let me tell you what, the thing that has caused me to grow the most as a homeschool mom is asking myself those questions and reflection. Reflection has made me a better mom myself and helped me make homeschooling just a dreamy place for my kids to learn. It's not all, sunshines and rainbows, but we have a great time, and the reflecting process is what's helped me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it's not nothing's gonna be perfect, that's not life, but knowing yourself better and knowing your kids better is going to make you feel more connected to them, and that's key, I think, to having a positive, happy homeschool experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So to wrap us up, tell us one thing that's lighting you up as a homeschool mom in this season.
I think, what's lighting me up is watching my kids' friendships develop. Um, it's very, interesting. One of the first things a lot of people ask about homeschooling families is like, but how will they get socialized? And it's like,
Ooh.
wow, right? And it's like, well, they won't sit at a desk and be told to be quiet all day. I'll tell you that. That's not how they're going to socialize. But they, just watching, as like I said, my oldest just turned 10 this past week, and it's just watching those friendships develop and him even a friend that he gets to see almost weekly during the school year wanting to be a pen pal with that person and like us like just planning pickup baseball games and things like that. It just makes me happy to see how my kids are really developing those deeper relationships.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is so special. I was just thinking my oldest as well. We had a friend he was really close with come back into our lives. They travel and so they're back in town. And you should just see the way he lights up when that friend walks into our jujitsu gym and he like literally like dropped his weights yesterday because we were working out and doing CrossFit. And he's like, "Oh, Joe's here." And I was like, Can we put our weights away, please?"
Don't hurt
It's
yourself.
Yeah. So it is. I absolutely love that too in this season. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brittany, and just sharing some of your story. Um, and what's one final word you want to leave with the moms who are listening?
Just know that your children are they are learning all the time and they if you cultivate that love of learning, they're going to lean into that and it's going to matter for the rest of their lives. And it's funny cuz like not to like tag back onto that what you just asked me, but I'm like I walk out like another thing that it does light me up is I walk out in the mornings and I see my kiddo reading a book like Great Battles for Boys. Like he's reading a history book and I'm like, "Oh, he's teaching himself. Job done." And it's like right? And just to watch them like if something isn't working, take a break from it. Just take a break from it and go, "Okay, how can we maybe reintroduce this in a different way in a couple weeks? How can we try something different?" Like really just keep that love of learning alive and it'll matter. It'll make a difference for the rest of their lives.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being on.
Thank you.